is operating? Well, let's take a step back again. What drives a global economy? Consumption, and the more the better. More consumption means more jobs, better GDP, and hence enabling more consumption through purchasing power that's enabled. Is that efficient? Shouldn't preservation and reducing waste be the basis of an economy on a finite planet by definition? How can an economy based on the need for constant growth and turnover, and even an economy based on constant need for employment, be economizing anything at all? Then there's this thing called cost efficiency. Cost efficiency demands cutting expenses to remain competitive in the marketplace. Every single product created by any corporation today, without exception, is immediately inferior by design. For the market requirement to cut creation costs in favor of lowering the output purchasing price to maintain a competitive edge automatically reduces the quality of any given item by default. It is impossible to create the strategically best, long-lasting anything in our society, and this translates into outrageous amounts of wasted resources. Likewise, the same mechanism is also reinforcing environmental disregard, depletion, and pollution. Everyone's trying to save money. Why do you think they're going to really care about the environment? The logic is against it. We see this constant in the world today among many, many other issues I could list. In fact, if you take a moment to really step back and think about this, not only is this inefficiency a characteristic of the market model, it's actually the fundamental driver. Having clean, say, unpolluted water in your home might seem like a nice thing in gesture, but the fact that money is not being exchanged for that is anathema to the economic sustainability that we've come to understand. So more pollution means more profit. More disease means more jobs. Ad infinitum. In fact, I would go so far to say, as pointed out here, that sustainability, efficiency, and preservation empirically are the enemies of our economic system, and that's unfortunately the firm reality. Those out there who talk about a green economy or the like, as though there's such a thing that could possibly exist in this system, posing solutions within this structural order, such as renewable energies, energy credits, carbon footprint stuff, or the like, they are not understanding what's actually at work here. You cannot have a true green or even close to whatever you would consider a sustainable economy in the market model of economics. It is technically impossible. The system would fail if we ever wanted to operate on a truly technical, sustainable level, for the system is in fact fueled by the exact opposite set of mechanics. I would even go so far to challenge, for those out there that basically at this stage are not in favor of the complete abolition of the market economy as the solution to the destruction of our environment, not to mention the collapse of the social order itself we are seeing, while working to replace this system with a truly technical approach for resource management, proper scientific allocation, seeking the highest level of efficiency possible at every turn in production and distribution, for maximum sustainability, which is a technical distinction, including proper allocation of labor and everything else, really just engaging in patchwork. It's not going to do anything in the long run. And we're wasting time because time is literally running out. This, again, coming back to my premise, is the result of our limited dimensional perception. We had based our economy on outdated notions of human behavior and convoluted notions of supposed freedom and ignored the true technical reality, true environmental reality that actually supports and sustains our lives and creates good public health. This realization that our true economic benchmark is science, and hence the self-evident calculation requirement needed to streamline our efficiency, inherently voids the entire basis, again, of free market economics itself. I can't reiterate that enough. For it simply makes zero technical sense scientifically and is, in fact, provably now working against our survival and accelerating. Coming back to politics, let's take a quantum leap outside of our traditional assumptions for a moment. What does the political institution and hence government really do? Why do we even have it? They work to compensate for the inefficiency of the economy. That's it. That's the only reason they're there. When people are not getting their needs met, they often resort to so-called crime. So government invents laws to silence those victims of the economic efficiency. Likewise, if we need resources being held in another sovereign nation, aka region of the planet, and we are not economically getting along with them, we engage in war to steal those resources, not to mention protect ourselves from others who might want to steal ours. There is no war in history that has not been based upon resource acquisition or protection. Likewise, the world's divided into gangs. You ever notice that? We still have these things called countries. We still assume a socially Darwinistic pretense with the very existence of these nation states, not to mention the divisive, patriotic value distortions that are born out of it. Here, once again, we have the limited dimensional perspective clashing with an emergent multidimensional reality. Are countries relevant in technical terms? How could we possibly define them outside of our opinions? A, all humans share the same basic needs. And B, the resources that we all need have no idea what a country is. And they are dispersed everywhere on this planet in one single unified ecosystem. If there's anything positive that came out of the US and Russian Cold War that almost triggered complete nuclear disaster decades ago, it was the realization that radiation fallout and nuclear winter never heard of countries, flags, or sovereignty. Just as the pollution from the Japanese power plants that melted down a while back, it didn't need passports to cross over to other countries' atmospheres. I hope my point is clear. The fact is, there is only and can only be one global economy, and hence there is only one and can only be one global society, for our economic premise is what defines us, and that's what our survival is. The socioeconomic system of our time is as archaic, dogmatically religious, and pseudoscientific as any dogmatic religious belief. They are completely decoupled from the benchmark of our scientific emergent reality, which is being denied, held in place by traditional, non-emergent institutions, which, mark my words, will be what destroys life on this planet as we know it, if the multidimensional reality that is springing up is not realized and brought to the surface quickly. The central problem we face is that the economic system is actually still systematically reinforcing itself, continuing to hold this paradigm in place by the ongoing values and actions of the masses, who do not see the true source of the problem because they're trapped inside of it, and they are accelerating its effects. For example, if anyone out there frames their sense of leadership or success based on money or acclaim, you have a rude awakening coming to you. In fact, I couldn't help but notice reading the pamphlet of all the well-meaning presentations in this event, and they seem to frame things in a very similar way as far as the way they orient themselves in this system. And I don't blame them and don't put them down, but I hope this definition can eventually change. What is true success? Is success how well you manage your company, sell a book, gain a profit, or anything that engages the current socioeconomic paradigm? If you agree with what I have just described with respect to the economic system, those focusing on short-term material success might very well be assisting in their own long-term failure and demise, for they are only perpetuating a detrimental social system in the end that, as I said before, will get the best of all of us if it isn't stopped. Shouldn't true success be your ability to adapt to the emergence of new information? Improving your relationship with the natural order benchmark that we've spoken of? Is there really anything else that can possibly define success in the broadest possible terms? Proper alignment with whatever reality happens to be, advancing itself and you being with it? Do our relationships and marriages and bank accounts and even our children, our status, our acclaim really mean anything when it's stepped back to the larger order of what it means to relate to the world that you live in? There's a common term we frequently hear these days, corruption. It seems to be all over the news and you can't possibly escape it. How would you define corruption broadly? I would define it as the initiation or support of deprivation, exploitation, and/or abuse, either social or environmental. If this definition is accepted, then it is logically correct to say that all acts of commerce are inherently corrupt. If you define corruption as deprivation, exploitation, or abuse, every time you mark up a value on a good you sell or cut corners to save money, you are engaging in deprivation, exploitation, and abuse by its systemic causal effect and intrinsic rationale. That is the behavior our social system requires to continue, and that distortion is currently masked as normality. In conclusion, and as a final rogue example of this limited dimensional perspective meeting an emergent multi-dimensional reality that is forcing its hand, there is no you and there is no me. We live in a world which assumes division. Why? Because that is what we perceive with our five senses, limited sense organs. But molecular study has proven the opposite. It doesn't see it that way. There is a perpetual ebb and flow and exchange of molecular data constantly happening within you and outside of you, interweaving with your environment at all times and many levels. Concurrently, our life support is explicitly symbiotic as well. We need resources to live, and hence the connection to our evolutionarily adapted habitat that basically created us over generational time. There's absolutely no disconnect. In the words of Jacques Fresco, you don't see the plug up our ass, but it happens to be there. And then we have the knowledge level as well, as I alluded to before. We exist in a group mind. Newton did not invent gravity, just as Einstein did not invent relativity. For him to do so, he would have had to invent the whole of mathematical development since the beginning of time, along with all the tools and supporting provisions and everything else that comprised his state of knowledge naturally at that point in history. Every word coming out of my mouth has been learned. We only have the illusion of novelty because each of us appear to originate in seemingly separate pockets of experience in this connected unison that we share. And hence, our supposed creations seem unique and original and novel, but they're only extensions. As stated at the beginning, there's nowhere to hide from the collective consciousness, and we are all responsible for each other. The underlying meaning of this presentation, if you will, is that until human society, again, is able to find a basic, common, working, responsible value set which we can basically agree upon, which is consistently pinged against the emerging benchmark of our scientific reality, we have a very, very difficult road ahead. Within this context, as we listen to the world around us, I consider the most active value orientation we can have, which almost guarantees an empathetic reaction, which hopefully can maintain this social diligence that's required. I consider the acceptance of our intrinsic unification to be the most powerful form of expression of these ideas, an acknowledgement of the oneness, as it is poetically termed. This oneness over division value seems to be the ultimate example, at least at this point in time, of our limited dimensional perception being overcome by the multidimensional reality. And if properly understood, there can be no basis for war. There can be no logic for greed. There can be no such thing as inefficiency and waste, no basis for poverty. There can't possibly be class. And in fact, as abstract and misunderstood as it might sound, there can be no basis to define you, and there can be no basis to define me. Thank you.